Hello and welcome back. We're going to continue working with Excel today and continuing on working with tables. The topics that we're going to cover in this short video is filtering data using a single column or multiple columns. We're going to do some complex filtering, and then we're going to look at some statistics that we can do with this by creating a totals row, subtotaling our data, splitting it into different panes so we can look at it, and when we're looking at subtotals we'll also see some outline buttons. So let's go ahead and get started. If you have not opened your museum working file, go ahead and pause me and find it, and then we will get busy here. Alright, continuing on, what we're going to do here first is we've done some basic sorting. Now we're going to do some more additional filtering and things as we look at this. So using one column of data that we want to do makes it very easy. We've done this in Access, and we've done this a little bit already here too. So let's click on our category filter, and we can, on this little arrow here, and you see all the choices that we have. Now we've done it sorting it A to Z, sorting it by custom list. Well, now I only want to look at certain things. So if I click the Select All button down here, that says I'm not going to look at anything, but I really want to look at only the paintings. So I'll click on Painting and say OK. Now you'll notice that my data, if I scroll down, only contains things that were paintings there. If I wanted to check what I was doing and what I had done, I could hover over the category arrow and it would tell me what I have sorted by. So what if I want to look at my paintings, but I only want the ones to show that are in poor condition? If you notice, we have excellent, good, fair, and poor now. Well, we can do this. If we click on the condition arrow, and now we can look at this and we can clear the areas that we don't want. So we don't want good, fair, or excellent, because we're only interested in the poor items, and we say OK, and that reduces us to 3. We now have just 3 items that we are looking at. So you can see how you can quickly evaluate your data by doing this. How do we clear it? Well, when we're done looking, we can click on the condition arrow, we say clear filter, category, clear filter, and now we're back to looking at our entire item. Now when we're looking at multiple filter items, what we've done here is we kind of used an AND operator, right? Because we were saying we only wanted to look at paintings and if they were in poor conditions. Well, sometimes we want to use an OR condition in that as well. So we can do that too by doing this. So let's look at the category filter again, and let's choose, let's get rid of textile and let's get rid of painting. So we're only going to look at things that are installation and sculpture. Let's say OK. So that should give us a few records here, about half a dozen. Alright. But our next filter, what we want to do is we want to look at a thing and filter. Maybe we want to say it's only greater than a certain appraised value. Well, we can do that, and we can do these operators simply by looking at this, and I want to show you some filters that we have. So when you're looking at the complex filtering, these are some things that you would want to do. You could tell it to equals or doesn't equal, or that it's greater than or less than, and using these operators. So you may want to refer back to this later and keep this in mind as we're going. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a number filter on the appraised value, because we're only interested in the things that are worth more than $20,000. So if we click on appraised value and we go to number filters, now it says number filters because we're working with the fields that have numbers in them versus text. So in our case, we would simply say what? Greater than, and we click on that, and we want greater than $20,000. So we simply say greater than $20,000. If we wanted it to have something extra, we could say and, or we could choose or at this point as well. But for us, we just want to know if it's over $20,000 and we say OK. So that gives us what? 7 records. And that's all well, nice and good too. But if I was going to print this report and give it to somebody, I might want it sorted a little bit differently than just some random. So I might want it sorted by appraised value, so I can come back here and I can click on it, and now I can say sort the largest to smallest, and it'll do that for us as well. So what have we done here? We said first we wanted things that were only installation and sculpture, and then we wanted things that were greater than $20,000, and we sorted it all there. Alright, so we've done a whole bunch of different sorts. We've learned how to clear that data once by clicking on here and saying clear, but we could also come up to our data tab and say in the sort and filter group and say clear as well, and that'll clear it just as easily. Alright, let's talk about some statistics. Sometimes we want to know how much. What if I wanted to know my appraised value, how much that was? Well, that's simple enough because I can add a totals row. But let's not care about everything in here. Let's just only look at the things that are only good, excellent, and fair. So let's put a condition on this first. So we'll click on condition. We'll clear the check mark in poor. So now we only have things that are excellent, good, and fair conditions. So we can scroll down and we can see that that eliminated some of our records. Alright, now if we go to our Table Tools Design tab, you'll notice that in the table style options, we have a button called Total Row. Very nice. Click that total row. Let's scroll down to the bottom, and what do we have? We now have a total line for us. Excel will automatically add up or sum everything that is in the very last row of your table. That's a good thing, but sometimes I may want to know other statistics on here. For example, maybe I want to know how many artists I have. Well, I can do that too by simply clicking in that artist on my total row, clicking on that cell that gives my artist, and you notice I now have a little elevator button here. I can click on that and I can do all of these functions and a whole lot more. But for me, I just want to count, so I want to know how many artists there are. So I say count, and it gives me 110. I can also, if I go back up to the top of my table by hitting my Control and Home key, I can split my window into panes so I don't have to do so much scrolling. So let's click on A17 right here. We're going to scroll up a little bit. There we go. And then we're going to go to our View tab. And in our View tab in the windows here, you can see we have this great little button called Split. And it's going to split my panes right where I have my row selected. So now if I'm down in the lower portion, I can scroll down to the end, and there's my total row. Can be kind of handy sometimes if we wanted to do that. Do you remember how to update an item? If not, let's do that real quick. So let's find it. Remember, on our Home tab, we can go over here to the Find and Select, or we can hit Control F to find. Control F. We're going to look for Art Object 113. So let's put 113 in here in our search box and say Find Next. Up there it is, Dark Canyon. So we can hit Close. Let's change the value to $8,000. And we can easily do that. To get rid of the split pane that we have here, and once we're done with it, we simply go back to View and we click on the split again, and now we're back to our normal panes. Alright. If you notice, we still have our totals down here at the bottom. We can eliminate that by clicking on our design and saying total row, and that takes our totals away. We can click on our conditions, right, and get rid of that. So we have all of our data back, and if we go back home, we can hit Control Home, and we're at the top of our pad. All right, final thing we're going to talk about is inserting subtotals. Maybe I want to know what the value is of everything that's in excellent condition, or everything that's in a certain location, or maybe the value of each artist. Well, we could do that by sorting the information and then adding a subtotal row. Now here's where we go wrong. People often will get the sorting portion correct, but then they can't get to that darn subtotal, because look, when I'm working in a table, if I click on data, over here in my outline group, you notice that magic subtotal button, it's not available. So what we have to do is two things. The first thing we have to do is sort all of our data so it's in the way that we want. Then we turn it back into a plain old data range. And then our subtotal button does that. So let's do that real quick. All right, here we go. So we're going to sort our categories. And we just want a plain old A to Z. Alright, so we have installation, painting, sculpture, textile. Alright, so we've got that. Alright, now here's how we convert it back to a range. If you click on the Design tab, down here in the Tools, we have Convert to Range. When we do that, it says, do you really want to do that? And I say, well, yes, of course I do. So I say yes, and now I'm back to just a plain old button. Okay, now if I go over on my data tab, my subtotal button is available. I simply click subtotal and it brings up this great little box. Now, here's where it gets fun, because we have to remember how we sorted things. Well, we did. We sorted it by what? Category. So at each change in category, we're going to add a subtotal for the appraised value. You want to make sure that your Replace Current Subtotals button is checked and that your Summary Below Data button is checked. And then you simply say OK. And it automatically enters these subtotals for us. You see I have an installation total, a painting total, a sculpture total, a textile total, and then I have a grand total. Oh, wait. I also have some new things over here on the left. This is called the outline view. And we can do certain things by collapsing these outline buttons to hide the records. If we click on the level 2 outline, it only gives us the subtotals for all the categories. All the data is hidden. You see I have individual little plus signs over here that I can expand them an individual one if I want to. So we'll click on that. Or if I click on the number 1 button, that just gives me the grand total of all the data. If I click back on the number 3, that gives me back to my information. So just some things in outlining, subtotals, and things that you'll want to know and do. Okay, so let's get rid of our subtotals. How do we do that? Well, it's pretty easy. We come back over here and we click on subtotal and we say remove all. Now our data is back in our regular form, and let's turn it back into a table. If you remember, we simply do what? We say insert table. It gives us our range. Make sure you have that dotted line sitting around your range and not the whole spreadsheet. Make sure that you have the box checked off if you have headers, and you say OK. And we're back to a table. If you notice, we have to give our table a name again. So up here in the properties box, let's call it Art Objects, just like we did before. And we are done. All right, quick, down and dirty. That concludes this segment of working with tables. I will see you in the next video.